I am live. I have to be honest, I cannot wait to continue reading, and if I were to read this on my own, I would have continued this. But I promised myself not to read ahead, so I'm not. That means I have to read aloud. Another chapter of So Moses was born by Joan Grant, Joan Marshall Grant. She was married 3.5 times, I think. She lived from 1907 till 1989, and she wrote books about her own far memories. This is her life as Nebunefer, the brother of Moses, who is the Pharaoh of that time, placed many thousand years ago. And we are now at the birth, or we think we are, at the birth of what Moses expects to be his heir. But it has to be verified. Dawn hour. If Apu had not been waiting to drive me home, I think I should never have found my way. Karadan heard the horses and came out to meet me. When he saw my face, he put his arm around me, led me to his day room and made me lie on the couch. Don't try to talk yet, Neb. I will fetch Pempi. Then you know. I have seen your eyes. You are sure you're not mistaken? A girl could be a winged pharaoh? Za'atet himself had such a daughter. Don't try to comfort me, Karadan. Save your comfort for Moses. I deserve nothing. I have betrayed you all. I have betrayed Sensen. For 16 years I've believed in my dreams, and now, because I have proved them false, I do not even believe in the gods. Hush, Neb. No one dare utter such blasphemies. No one except Nebunefer, the boy who had not the courage to become a priest, the husband who let his wife die because he was too proud to have a physician at the living water, the renegade prince who crept back from his hiding place to break the faith of great Pharaoh. I swept the statue of Horus from the table with my outflung arm. My faith is broken, so let the gods destroy me as I destroy their image. And if they let me continue to live, I shall know they have not the wit to design a deeper hell. Neb, what's happened? Pempi, carrying a lamp, stood in the doorway. He doesn't know what he is saying. Karadan stood between us, trying to save me from the humiliation of letting her see my tears. I pushed him roughly aside. Behold a fool bemused by dreams who now has awakened to harsh reality. At noon I left you to welcome the son of Horus. I return like some hideous grub from a rotting corpse with the news of the dead. The child is dead. A male child whose skull was crushed like an overripe fruit squeezed by an ape, because the doorway into life was too narrow for so great a man to enter. Mara? What happened to Mara? She had courage which would have made a captain humble. She died like Sensen in a torrent of blood. There's blood on my hands, blood everywhere. Blood, blood. In the distance I heard Pempi's voice. Bring wine and the covers from my bed. The floor was no longer hard and cold under my cheekbone. My head was in Pempi's lap, and she was stroking my forehead. Then I heard Sensen speak to me. Neb, have you so little faith in me? I said in 3 days. I put out my hand and clutched the broken pieces of faience that had been a statue of Horus. Horus has betrayed me, or else I could not have betrayed you. The gods cannot betray anyone, or they would still be mortal. Listen, my dear and foolish love, and hear the truth. Pempi, are you sure he has only fainted? Why must Karadan speak when I was trying so desperately to hear Sensen? Then it was Pempi's voice that I heard. Karadan, hand me some wine. No, not too full, or I'll spill it. I tried to let the wine slide down my throat, but the cup clattered against my teeth. Pempi tried to make him understand that there is still another chance. Surely that voice, quavering with emotion, could not belong to Caradon. Pempy, tell him that it is I who nearly betrayed us all. The girl Ramoses loved is not dead. She's a Hebrew. But who are we to question if Horus prefers Hebrews? Pempy, make him understand, for Mimosas will be with us within the hour. Thenru was waiting here to fetch him as soon as Neb's chariot was sighted. I think the anguish of Caradon's appeal would have raised a mummy from its tomb. It certainly raised me from a pit of despair, exhaustion, and horrid self-pity that I had thought eternal as the underworld. Before the royal chariot entered the courtyard, Apu had taken me to my room and poured several jars of alternatively hot and cold water over me, dressed me in a clean kilt, and made me swallow 4 raw eggs. Pempy had painted her face and combed her hair. Caradon had carefully collected the pieces of faïence, wrapped them in linen, and secreted them in the box where he kept the royal seal. Only when Ramoses entered the room did any of us realize that we had not had time to decide which of the 3 should break the news to him, news which was to us was infinitely better than total despair, but might not be acceptable to Pharaoh. Ramoses had the advantage of careful preparation. He wore, in addition to the garments of ceremony, the warrior headdress, the pectoral of Horus, the golden sandals of a high priest of Amen-Ra, none of which, except for the headdress, he could claim except by virtue of title. He was obviously surprised to be received in such an inconspicuous room, and I could see him being rather self-consciously understanding that we had been too occupied with urgent matters to prepare the audience room with appropriate decorations, to summon trumpeters, to unseal wine jars suitable for a toast to the future. His opening remarks showed he was at his most pharaonic. My son will claim also the title of the son of the morning, for his arrival has brought forth Pharaoh even before Ra's chariot has left the stables of the sky. I glanced towards the window and realized that in fact it was still the dawn hour, when servants stare on their pallets and those whom they serve sink into deeper sleep. Ramoses dear, said Pempy, you know how impulsive I am? Well, for some odd reason I suddenly realized we must all be here together at the dawn hour, between the sun at noonday and another sun at noonday. Symbolic of you and the next Pharaohs. Forgive me if I sound illogical, but after all I am only a woman and we do the best we can. There was a protracted and ominous pause. Do you mean that you have got me out of bed in the middle of the night for no good reason? Said Pharaoh. But it is a very good reason. What could be better? We all thought that the 4 of us should be together to drink to the gods, who are so much wiser than we are. Caradon, who was pale with desperation, took his cue and hastily gave Ramoses a brimming goblet. I can drink to the gods at more convenient hours and sacrifice to them if need be at any time, said Ramoses coldly. Caradon leaned forward in his chair, and I knew that at any moment he was going to leap to his feet and make a full and improvident confession. Pempy motioned him to keep silent, and smiling at Ramoses said, if you let Caradon tell you about it, he will go on for hours and hours, using beautifully balanced words. So, Ramoses, dear, wouldn't you rather I told you? Before he could answer, Pempy went towards him, saying, that headdress is terribly heavy, so let me take it off. Why should any one of us suffer needless discomfort when we are just the family? To my relief, he even allowed her to remove the golden sandals and flexed his toes, which were marked with a hard metal. Pempi, I'm grateful for your sisterly attentions, but I'm also aware that none of you would expect me to come here in the middle of the night, or even in the fourth quarter, if you wish me to be exact, unless I thought to hear news of the most vital importance. Has my son of Horus been born? Karad and I both started to speak at once, but Pempi interrupted us. Not yet, but I will explain. Then why is Neb not at the old palace? It never occurred to me that he could be so remiss in his duties. Rameses rose to his feet. I will go to Patmos immediately and apologize to him for my brother's indifference. Neb would not be there if he was needed at the old palace. His presence proves that you lie, no doubt, with the most generous motives. I have never lied to you, Rameses. Why should I? When you would know the words false before they came from my mouth? He smiled at her, the first smile which had moved the royal lips since he entered the room. There shall be silence until Pempi has spoken. Drops of sweat were slowly rolling down Karadan's forehead. My nails had already scored deep into the palm of my hands. Pempi managed to look as though she was doing no more than entertain a rather difficult guest on a sultry afternoon. Do you remember when we were children, our nurse used to tell us stories? No, of course you had a different nurse, but they are all much the same. The hero goes out to slay the monster, the starving man seeks the pot of gold, but always the treasure is found only in the last cave, beyond the farthest deserts. My nurses also were not lacking in imagination, said Rameses. They gave us much more than we realized, the wish to believe in the impossible and make it come true. But it is very difficult to believe in the magical truth when you have been trained in logic and expediency. You knew in your heart that Seti chose you in place of Neb, because he believed that you might make his dream for Egypt flower into reality. Why did you have so many children? That is a question which no one has had the courage to ask me, and I have seldom dared answer myself. It is the considered opinion of Padma that my initiation into sexual experience at Tua's instruction, together with the pitiable belief that the rites of Osiris had to be factual rather than symbolic, caused in me such a deeply ingrained fear of impotence that I have to demonstrate that I am more than capable of inspiring fecundity. How shallow are fair Fatmas! You knew that the child you wanted could be born only to a woman who really loved? Because you are too humble to believe that anyone could love you as an ordinary man. You let Karadan choose the 28 virgins. I have doubtless been accused of many things, but not, so far as I know, of being the victim of false humility. Then beware of the 37th assessor. Hast thou a vision of thyself in thy heart in honor? If you knew how lovable you are, Rameses, you would not have to be so arrogant. Rameses frowned in a manner which would have stricken the governors of provinces to their knees. I did not come here to be rebuked, even by you, Pempi. I do not rebuke you. I only want to tell you that the girl you love, the girl who will be the mother of your son Horus, is alive. I saw Pharaoh's hands clench until it seemed as though the knuckles must split the skin. Karadan swore she was dead, he thundered, and Karadan lied. You know him far too well to suspect him of a base motive, but he lied. Why should my brother lie to me? Why did he try to deprive me of the only thing I wanted? Can I command no loyalty? Karadan had to choose between two loyalties. He chose the lesser, because it was more difficult. He tried to protect me, his wife, against your just and terrible anger. "I've never given you cause to fear me, nor will I ever do so," said Ramosis, but I saw that he was flattered by thinking she was afraid of him. "Then let me confess my sin." She looked so contrite that I was not surprised when he said more quietly, "Speak, and be assured of my clemency." She knelt before him as though she were in fact a supplicant for mercy. It was I who suggested to Caradon that among the virgins there should be one who was born of the common people. If Horus came down amongst mortals, then Pharaoh also could raise the lesser to his statue. "I've never heard Caradon's view that the common people are necessarily different to ourselves. Continue with your story, my sister." "The girl he originally selected was the daughter of the new overseer of our vineyard at Heliopolis. She was to come to you on the 28th night, being the last in order of precedence. Caradon thought he tries to conceal it lest it cause you anxiety, is subject to sudden and violent bouts of fever. That girl. One such afflicted him on the 26th day. Lest he should endanger his life by leaving his bed, I withheld from him the news that the girl had been killed by a chariot. He had impressed on me the need for the utmost discretion, so determined to find another to take her place, I sent my charioteer to seek a girl who was younger and more beautiful than myself. Your charioteer must have thought it an odd request. It is unusual for a wife to choose concubines for her husband. I had told him that the girl was for an illustrious guest, whom my husband wished to please. I told him to walk with her along a certain road where I waited in my carrying litter, peering between the drawn curtains to assure myself that he had chosen well. As you love her, Ramosis, you cannot blame me for thinking my charioteer is an even better judge of women than he is of mares. I have not blamed you, Pempi. It appears increasingly clear that the guilt is entirely with Caradon, a guilt so profound that it still remains inexplicable. But you have not yet heard all that I have to say. When Caradon recovered from his fever, I told him what I had done. He sent for my charioteer and questioned him. Can you conceive of his horror, and my own, when he discovered that the girl came from one of the Hebrew villages? I was tormented with such anguish that Caradon, so to protect me from your wrath, said that the girl was dead. She sat back on her heels, her hands folded in her lap, defenseless before Pharaoh. She is alive, said Ramosis. Pempi, of your charity, do not lie to me, however much I deserve it. She is alive? She glanced over her shoulder and signed to Caradon and me to leave them alone together. We did so with alacrity. Is any of it true? I asked Caradon as we paced backwards and forwards in Pempi's bedroom. It is a fabric so brilliantly woven of truth and falsehood that even I am bewildered to see where Weaveth joins the warp. No one was killed by a chariot. The daughter of the nomarch of the Sistrum came out in a rash, which I thought might be the symptom of an infectious disease. How could I know it was only due to eating stale prawns? It was too late to find a suitable substitute, so I told my captain of the guard that I wanted a girl to entertain an envoy from Syria. It is true that I was temporarily confined to bed with fever, or I should have been more explicit in my instructions. It was only after she had been to Ramosis that I discovered she was a Hebrew. I was disturbed, but not utterly dismayed. I thought if I told Ramosis she was amongst those who did not conceive, he would never want to see her again. He always dislikes to be reminded of his failures. How could I expect him to fall in love with her, the only one who was entirely unsuitable? With a Hebrew, it seemed preposterous. Why did you invent the chariot incident? Well, considering I was caught off my guard, I thought I lied with extreme efficiency. I'm not used to lying, Neb, except in matters of diplomacy, and then one has ample time to do so with conviction. You took Pempi into your confidence. Why did you not allow me the same courtesy? I told Pempe nothing about it. All I had time to do, just before Ramoses arrived, was to say that I had had the girl and her aunt sent to the Hebrew village near here. It seemed wiser to do that than to leave them at Tanis. How could I know that Ramoses would suddenly change all my plans and decide that the children were to be born at the old palace? Angry as I was, I almost pitied him for sounding so petulant. Nearly 3 hours passed before Pempe came to us. Caradon looked like a child who expects to be slapped. Has he forgiven me? There were shadows of exhaustion under her eyes. Not yet, but he will. You will be severely reprimanded for trying to undermine my faith in his understanding. That is the best I could do for you. She took off her gold fillet and dropped it on the floor. Ramoses will let us know when he has made up his mind what to do. I'll finish this here at the first part. Dawn hour. We're getting closer. Have a nice Friday. Bye.